You ever wonder what you'd do if nothing could stop you for just one day? No limits. No consequences. Just 24 hours to live like the rules never existed. Most people dream about it. I lived it. And it broke me in all the right places. I was sitting in a laundromat off 13th and Grand, watching a dryer spin my last pair of socks in a static-charged oblivion, when I got the call. Is this Miles Fletcher? My first instinct. Debt collector. My student loans had been chasing me since sophomore year. I glanced at the caller ID blocked. Depends who's asking, I said, stretching out my legs and propping my heel on a broken detergent vending machine. This is the law office of Reed, Goodman, and Bellows. We're calling regarding the estate of Mr. Edward M. Fletcher. That made me sit up straighter. I hadn't heard that name in over a decade. My uncle, technically. My dad's estranged brother. Last I'd heard, he lived in Montana and hadn't come to a single family funeral or wedding since Y2K. Okay, go on. I'm sorry to inform you Mr. Fletcher passed last week. He left behind a will naming you sole beneficiary. The terms are unusual, but legally sound. Beneficiary of what? A sum totaling approximately $31 million. I blinked. Thought maybe I misheard. 31 million? Yes. I laughed. Out loud. People looked at me like I'd finally snapped. Which, given my surroundings and hygiene, wasn't far off. There's a condition, the voice said, still calm, like this kind of thing happened every day. You inherit the full amount immediately. But at 9 a.m. tomorrow, the assets will vanish. All of it. No extensions. No loopholes. Think of it as borrowed wealth. I stared at the dryer. Watch my socks spin. You're messing with me. I assure you, Mr. Fletcher, this is very real. We suggest you act fast. The line clicked. Dead. I stood up so fast I nearly tipped the cracked plastic chair backward. A woman folding sweatpants glared at me. I just nodded like it all made sense. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even go home. I walked the streets, played the call over and over in my head, checked Google for the law firm. It existed. Verified the death. That too. Then I checked my bank account. There it was. $31,004,722.89. My body turned to ice. Then fire. My fingers trembled as I scrolled. Transfers were legit. My debit card was suddenly the holy grail. I could buy anything. Do anything. Be anyone. For one day. 9:03 a.m. the next morning. I stood in a private clothing store on the upper floor of a boutique hotel in the city. A guy named Matisse, no joke, pinning the cuffs of a linen jacket I had no intention of wearing twice. How do we feel about this cut? He asked, lips pursed, tape measure dangling from his neck. I feel like I'm in a movie. You're not, he said dryly. But you do clean up nice. For $1,800 later, I walked out in clothes that didn't smell like laundromat lint traps or 3-day-old anxiety. I caught my reflection in the glass. I looked sharp. The kind of sharp that gets tables without reservations and free desserts without birthdays. I hailed a black car. Paid triple the rate. Had it take me to a downtown bank, where I withdrew $200,000 in crisp bills just to see what it felt like. I tipped the teller $1,000. She stared like she'd seen a ghost. Or worse, a rich man with nothing to lose. 12:11 p.m. I bought lunch at a place with no menu, where they curate experiences instead of cooking food. I didn't finish it. Some beet foam thing that looked like blood clot pudding. I left a $500 tip and walked out to a street performer singing Otis Redding like his life depended on it. I gave him $10,000. He cried. I almost did too. 1:02 p.m. I stood at the edge of a helipad, rotors chopping the air into wet thunder, the pilot's voice crackling through the headset. Where to, sir? I stared out across the skyline. Every building looked small, distant. I don't know, I said. And I meant it. The helicopter burned over the city like it was chasing time. I wasn't sure where we were going, just up. The pilot, some ex-military guy named Vince with a sleeve of tattoos and zero small talk, waited for direction. I picked the one place that felt impossible 2 days ago. Let's go to the coast, I said, yelling over the blades. Montauk. Copy that, he said. We banked east. The city shrank behind us. The skyline, the river, the memories. All of it got smaller the higher we climbed. I stared out the window and tried to breathe through it. 2:47 p.m. Montauk. Wind, salt, sun like white fire across the sand. Vince dropped me near a private marina. I tipped him $3,000 and told him to take the rest of the day off. He nodded once and lifted back into the sky like a god was coming home. I walked the pier until I found the yacht dealer. "I want the fastest one you've got," I said, not bothering to pretend I belonged. The salesman wore boat shoes and a smirk. "We've got a 42-footer with twin engines and a mahogany deck. Goes 0 to gone in seconds." "I'll take it." He laughed. "You want to test it first?" "No time." He blinked. "Okay, that'll be." I handed him my card. 3:22 p.m. The yacht was named Liberty's Spine. I didn't change it. I stood at the helm, shirt flapping, sunglasses I didn't own 2 hours ago cutting the glare off the water, and throttled forward. We ripped through the waves like they owed us something. I had no plan. I just needed to feel movement. Like if I slowed down, the clock would start ticking louder. I passed fishermen, ferries, a cruise ship so bloated it looked like it was trying to escape its own shadow. Somewhere between there and the horizon, it hit me. I'd burned through maybe 3 million, and none of it had touched the part of me that still felt like a failure. 4:30 p.m. Docked in a harborside town I'd never heard of. Took a cab into town. The driver, name tag reading Abdi, told me his daughter wanted to be a doctor but couldn't afford the first year. "How much she need?" I asked, halfway through a lukewarm can of Coke. He chuckled. "Too much. More than we got." I handed him a wad of bills. "Tell her to apply anyway." He pulled over, thinking I was drunk or crazy. Maybe both. "I cannot accept this." "You can. You will. And if she makes it through school, tell her to build something that matters." He wept in silence for 10 minutes as we idled beside a gas station. 6 p.m. Sun started to sink. Shadows stretched across everything. I was down to maybe 22 million. I could still buy a jet. A block. A damn country if I picked the right latitude. But nothing felt anchored. Every dollar spent made me feel lighter, and not in a good way. Like I was fading. Like I had no mass. So I called her. Jenna. The one that got tired of waiting for me to get my act together. The one who left after I pawned her guitar for rent money. "Hello." She sounded tired. "Hey," I said. "It's Miles." Silence. "Why are you calling me?" "I have $20 million and less than 15 hours left to use it." She laughed. "That's a new one." "I'm serious. Is this one of your weird stories again?" "No. It's real. I got an inheritance. 1-day expiration. I've spent most of it. I don't know why I called." More silence. Then, "Where are you?" "On a dock. Some nowhere town with good wind." She sighed. "Same as always." "Not quite," I said. "This time, I'm actually thinking about what matters." She paused. I thought maybe she hung up. But then, "You still draw?" I blinked. "No. I stopped after." "I know when. I'm asking if you still can." That hit harder than the inheritance. I sat on the dock and watched the stars claw through the sky. "Maybe. You should try," she said, softer. "Before it's midnight and all you've got is receipts." 8:13 p.m. I found a tiny art supply store 3 blocks from the water. The kind with dust on the windows and a woman behind the register who looked like she'd been waiting for someone to believe in color again. I bought every sketch pad, every pencil, every brush. Told her to take a week off. When she asked why, I said, "Because you still open your shop every day like someone might need it." She smiled like she hadn't in years. 9 p.m. I started to draw again. Just lines. Then shapes. Then faces. Not mine. People I met today. Abdi. The musician. The woman at the shop. The teller. I didn't know what I was building, but it felt like something. 10:01 p.m. I found a bench near the harbor, pulled a sketch pad onto my lap, and let my hands move without asking permission from my brain. That's when I realized I didn't need to think. Not anymore. For once, all the filters were off. All the fear. All the doubt. I had 13 million left and less than 11 hours. And for the first time all day, I wasn't burning money just to see if it could make a sound. I was making something again. It wasn't art, not yet. It was apology. It was memory. A language made of graphite and regret. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mr. Fletcher?" A woman's voice. Crisp. Professional. Cold enough to chill scotch. "Yes. This is Catherine Hayes. I represent Delmark Holdings, one of Mr. Fletcher's former partners. We'd like to discuss the nature of your sudden fortune." "Discuss it how?" She paused. I could hear the hum of a jet in the background, like her life moved faster than mine ever had. "Let's call it an opportunity." We know about the 24-hour clause. We'd like to help you make something permanent from it. How do you know about the clause? She ignored the question. There are structures, trusts, quiet places to park wealth. Offshore. Untouched. If we start now, you could preserve a third of it. Maybe more. I looked out across the water, felt the night pressing in. The temptation was real. After all, who wouldn't want to cheat the clock? What's the catch? I asked. You'll sign over rights to a portion. 25%. Our cut for the architecture. I exhaled. So you make millions off my fear of losing millions. You'd be surprised how many people take that deal. I'm not. I hung up. 11 p.m. I walked into a bar. Not one of those swanky rooftop joints with mezcal and mood lighting. A real one. With floors that creaked. Neon that buzzed. Locals who didn't need names to know your sins. I ordered a whiskey. Neat. Left 100 on the counter and waved off the change. The bartender squinted. You a trust fund kid on a bender or just got divorced? Neither, I said. But I've only got 9 hours left. He laughed like I was joking. I didn't correct him. In the corner, a man was crying into a plastic grocery bag. Not loud. Not messy. Just quietly breaking. I brought my drink over. Mind if I sit? He shrugged. Didn't look up. Bad night? I asked. He pulled a crumpled eviction notice from his bag. Bad decade. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Then I reached into my coat and handed him $5,000 in hundreds. He looked at it like it might explode. Don't sell it. Don't drink it. Don't waste it, I said. Just use it to stop the bleeding. His hands trembled. Why? Because I can. And because I used to be him. He tried to speak. I didn't let him. Buy yourself one day of peace, I said. Then use it to figure out the rest. 12:23 a.m. 7 figures left. I was tired of buying silence. So I walked until I found something that didn't need fixing. A playground. Empty. Still. Wood chips frozen under moonlight. I sat on a swing and let it creak beneath me. I used to think money would solve everything. Turns out, it just gives your demons better shoes. 1:10 a.m. I called Jenna again. You're still awake? She asked, voice groggy. I can't sleep, I said. Too much motion. You spinning it all? Trying. I gave a guy $5,000 in a bar. Bought art supplies. Bought a boat I'll never see again. Sounds like you. She paused. Then, you should buy one thing for you. I don't know what I want. You always wanted that brownstone on 6th. I laughed. I used to think owning a brownstone meant I'd made it. Maybe it just means you stopped running. Silence. The kind that only exists between two people who've hurt each other without meaning to. Then she said, I'm proud of you. Even if this is insane. You think I'm wasting it? No. I think you're finally spending it like it means something. 2 a.m. I bought the brownstone. Called a broker. Told her to triple the offer. Signed digitally. Didn't blink. It would revert in 7 hours, sure. But I wanted the moment. The dream. Even if it vanished, I wanted to say I had it once. For a night, I owned the place I thought could save me. That was enough. 3:07 a.m. I passed a hospital. Pulled the car over. Walked inside. A nurse met me with suspicion. I asked her if there were any families struggling to pay for a surgery. She hesitated. Then she nodded. Room 212. ICU. A boy named Mateo. 6 years old. Needed a heart valve. Insurance barely covered the coffee. I wired the money to the hospital foundation. Anonymously. When I peeked into the room, he was sleeping. His mother, a crumpled figure in a cracked leather chair, was holding his hand like it was the only real thing left in her world. I left before she could look up. For 10 a.m. The city looked different at this hour. Emptier. Honest. Like all the walls people built during daylight had fallen down for the night to breathe through the cracks. I drove without music, just the hum of tires and the low growl of the borrowed Jaguar cutting through the stillness. Somewhere around 45th and Lexington, a streetlight blinked out as I passed under it. Fitting. I was down to maybe 4 million. Not that I was tracking every dollar. But the number hung over me like the moon, always there, always shrinking. I wasn't scared of running out. I was scared of wasting the time I had left with it. For 26 a.m., I pulled over in front of an all-night diner. The kind with cracked vinyl booths, laminated menus, and coffee that could wake the dead or kill the living. Inside, a man in a janitor uniform sat hunched over a stack of pancakes. His eyes were hollow. His hands, raw from bleach. I sat across from him. He stared like I was a ghost. Rough shift? I asked. He snorted. Every shift's rough when your knees are older than your dreams. I smiled at that. Ever take a vacation? He laughed so hard he coughed. Does coughing count? Where would you go if you could? I asked. He squinted. Hawaii. I want to sit on a beach and forget the word mop. I nodded. Go then. He raised an eyebrow. I slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside, vouchers, cash, a handwritten itinerary. I'd booked him a first-class ticket while he was chewing. You're serious? Yeah. You leave in 6 hours. I got the best suite they had. Why? Because your dreams still matter. His eyes got glassy. I forgot how that felt, he whispered. 5:18 a.m. I watched the sun start to climb over the East River, bleeding color into a sky that had been gray for what felt like years. I parked near the bridge and walked until my legs ached. And that's when I saw him. Homeless. Mid-30s maybe. Wrapped in blankets that looked more like bandages. He wasn't asking for anything. Just sitting. Breathing. Enduring. I knelt beside him. Hey, I said softly. What do you need? He looked at me like I was a hallucination. Nothing, he rasped. Not anymore. What if you could have one day where you didn't feel forgotten? He didn't answer. I left him 3 envelopes. One had $10,000 in cash. Another had a motel room key and a prepaid cab voucher. The last had a letter. This is not charity. This is acknowledgement. You exist. And that matters. When I glanced back from the end of the block, he hadn't moved. But he was crying. 6 a.m. I returned to the brownstone. It wasn't mine anymore. Not really. But I still had the key. And for the next 3 hours, it was home. The place was empty. Echoing. I sat on the floor of the master bedroom, pulled out my sketch pad, and drew. I didn't stop for water. Or the light. I drew until my fingers cramped and the graphite smeared my palms like ash. I drew every face I could remember from the last 24 hours. The man in the diner. The janitor. The kid in the ICU. The bar musician. The woman at the art store. Jenna. Even the lawyer who tried to buy my future. Each line felt like closure. Like proof that the day had happened. That I'd been something other than a bank account with a heartbeat. 7:41 a.m. My phone buzzed. It was Jenna. I couldn't sleep, she said. Me neither. What are you doing? Sitting on a floor in a house I don't own. Drawing people I barely know. She was quiet for a while. I'm glad you called me, Miles. Me too. Then she asked, when it's all gone, what's next? I exhaled slowly. I start over. But different. This time, I know what I'm building toward. And what's that? I thought about it for a second. Then I said, a version of me that doesn't need money to feel like I matter. She didn't say anything, but I could feel her smile through the phone. 8:55 a.m. 5 minutes left. I stood outside the brownstone. Sun on my face. City waking up around me. Horns starting. Sirens groaning. Life rushing back in. I checked my balance. $71,129.14. I smiled. It was perfect. I walked across the street to a coffee cart. The guy was just opening up, fumbling with his float. Morning, he mumbled. Yeah, I said. It really is. I handed him my card. Takes too long to give it all away. So here's a shortcut. Fill every cup free today. Tip yourself like you deserve it. He stared. Then he grinned. You got it, man. 9 a.m. The account hit zero. Not a ding. Not a warning. Just gone. I stood on the curb, alone, broke again. But not empty. For the first time in my life, I knew what wealth actually looked like. And it wasn't numbers. It was the space I made. The hands I shook. The people I'd remember. Even if they never remembered me. 9:03 a.m. 3 minutes into poverty again, and the city didn't flinch. Neither did I. I was still standing outside that coffee cart, the steam rising from my cup curling like a question mark. The barista, Ollie, I learned, was grinning ear to ear, handing out free cappuccinos to half-awake New Yorkers who had no idea they were sipping someone's last dime. I sipped mine and walked away without a word. No fanfare. No applause. Just sneakers on pavement and a heart that felt, somehow, richer than it had $24 million ago. 10:12 a.m. I walked into the bank I'd visited the day before. Same woman at the counter. Same tight ponytail and neutral smile. Her name tag said S. Givens. She saw me, blinked. Maybe remembered the 5-figure withdrawal. Or the tip. I smiled. Hey, you got a second? She nodded, guarded. Of course. I just wanted to say, thanks. For not treating me like a freak yesterday. She laughed once, short and tired. You were the nicest rich person I've ever met. I was only rich for 24 hours. She froze. Wait, seriously? I nodded. Inheritance clause. It all evaporated at 9 a.m. Jesus. She leaned in. So, what did you do with it? I built a version of myself I'd want to keep. She blinked again, slower this time. Then she said the one thing I hadn't expected. Good. Most people just buy louder versions of their mistakes. 11:28 a.m. I found a library. Old one, tucked into a narrow building with vines choking the signage. Inside, it smelled like dust and stories. I sat in the back and cracked open a notebook. Not a sketch this time. To write. A list. Things that actually matter. 1. People who don't want anything from you. 2. Kindness that doesn't need credit. 3. Silence that doesn't feel like punishment. 4. Work that leaves you sore in the right places. 5. A roof that means shelter, not status. 6. Music at the right moment. 7. The right words from the wrong person. 8. The wrong words from the right one. 9. Being remembered by someone who owes you nothing. 10. Being proud of who you see in the mirror, even if he's broke. 1:03 p.m. I showed up at Jenna's door. She opened it slowly, one hand still gripping a dish towel, like she'd only half believed I'd actually come. Hey, I said. Hey. I held up a to-go bag. I brought dumplings. She let me in. 2 p.m. We didn't talk about the money much. I told her the short version. How I spent it. Who I met. What changed. She just listened. Always had. When I finished, she said, so what now? I shrugged. That's the first thing I've said today that scares me. She smiled. Good. Means you're still alive. For 22 p.m. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice on the other end. You're Miles Fletcher? I am. My name is Dr. Halvorson. I'm the director at the East Side Arts Collective. Okay. You donated yesterday. A box of supplies. And a check. No name on it. Right, I said cautiously. Well, one of our students found your sketchbook inside. I froze. The portraits. They're powerful. And he said you sketched them in one day? I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see me. Would you consider teaching a workshop? Just once a week. Volunteer basis for now. But we'd love to have you. I didn't even hesitate. Yes. Absolutely. 6:30 p.m. Jenna and I sat on the roof of her apartment building. Paper cups of wine. Blanket. Cityscape bleeding orange into blue. She leaned her head on my shoulder. You remember what you said back when we were broke? She asked. We're still broke. She nudged me. You said if you ever had real money, you'd buy a lighthouse. Vanish from everyone. I remember. You didn't. I didn't need to vanish, I said. I just needed to show up. She nodded, quiet. And for a while, that was enough. 8 p.m. The night crept in soft. No alarms. No deadlines. No $1,000,000 countdown. Just wind and light and a warmth I'd forgotten was possible. No one knew what I'd done with the money. No headlines. No write-ups. No viral tweet. But there were now 10 people, maybe more, walking around with a shot they didn't have yesterday. And that was the first time in my life I understood what legacy meant. Not fame. Not fortune. Just impact. Even if it disappears tomorrow. 9 a.m., one day later. My first day officially broke again. The first thing I did? Looked in the mirror. Same face. Less guilt. I shaved. Not because I had anywhere to be, but because the man looking back deserved someone who tried. I trimmed the scruff, rinsed the regret, and buttoned the one clean shirt I had left. Then I walked out into a world that didn't owe me anything. But maybe, just maybe, I had something to offer it. 10:14 a.m. I showed up early at the East Side Arts Collective. The building looked like someone tried to erase it from memory. Peeling paint. Gutters sagging like a tired back. Inside, though? Color. Music. Laughter. Life trying to crawl out of cracks in the walls. A wiry teenager named Malik shook my hand. Said he'd seen my sketches. Called them raw, like it was a compliment. He asked how I made the eyes look tired but hopeful. I didn't have an answer. So I told him the truth. Sometimes, I'm drawing what I need to see. He nodded like he got that. And that was the start of something I didn't even realize I'd been building toward. 12:03 p.m. Lunch was a peanut butter sandwich Jenna packed for me. I ate it sitting on a cracked bench outside the collective, watching two kids chalk a dragon across the sidewalk. It looked more like a lizard with a mohawk, but they argued over every scale like it was Picasso-level work. And that's when it hit me. This was peace, not perfection. Not applause. Just enough. 2:20 p.m. The barista from yesterday, Ollie, found me. I was sketching outside a church that had turned into a shelter on weekends. He walked up with a grin and a paper bag. Thought you might want this. Inside, a grilled cheese, a coffee, and a folded napkin with a note that said, "You helped me help them. I won't forget that." I hadn't realized how much I needed that. I thanked him. Then I added him to the next page of my sketchbook, right between Mateo's mom and the man from the diner. 4:45 p.m. The hospital called. Mateo made it through surgery. His mom left a message. She didn't know who I was, just that someone had made it happen. "Whoever you are," she said, her voice shaking, "you gave me my son back." I sat on the floor and cried. Not because it hurt. Because for the first time, the weight I'd carried most of my life, the one that whispered I didn't matter, was gone. 6 p.m. Jenna and I took the subway to the pier. We walked in silence, her arm brushing mine, the breeze cutting through our jackets. She didn't say, "I'm proud of you." She didn't need to. Instead, she said, "You're better broke." I blinked at her. "Gee, thanks." She smirked. "You know what I mean." I did. Better broke didn't mean useless. It meant unburdened, more present, less afraid. Better broke meant I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. 7:32 p.m. I found the man I gave the motel key to. He was sitting on the same bench. Cleaned up, shaved, fresh jacket. Eyes still tired, but clearer. When he saw me, he nodded. Didn't say thank you. Didn't need to. He said, "I called my sister." That was it. That was everything. 9 p.m. Back in my room, Jenna's couch. For now, I pulled out my notebook again. Started a new list. Things I built in 24 hours. 1. A future for a boy I'll never meet. 2. A house I never got to live in, but always dreamed about. 3. Music that might outlive its singer. 4. A stranger's vacation. 5. A kid's first real brush set. 6. A meal someone didn't ask for. 7. A moment of dignity for a man on the edge. 8. A new version of myself. 9. A reason for her to open the door when I called. 10. Proof that a single day can matter more than a lifetime of trying. 10:59 p.m. I stared at the ceiling and thought about what Uncle Edward would say if he could see me now. Maybe he already had. Maybe that was the point. He didn't leave me money to save my life. He left it to see if I'd finally use it to find one. 5 days later. The world didn't change. Traffic still clogged 2nd Avenue. Rent was still too high. The subway still smelled like damp secrets. But I had. People didn't notice at first. Not the clerk at the corner store. Not the landlord who still wanted a check. Not the coffee shop regulars who never asked my name. But I noticed. In the way I carried myself. In the way I didn't flinch when someone said future. In the way I didn't scroll job postings like they were evidence of my failures. Because I wasn't looking for a way out anymore. I was building a way in. Day 6:10 and 30 seconds a.m. I got a letter in the mail. Actual mail. Thick envelope. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Mr. Fletcher, we've been made aware of how you spent your inheritance. The clause was a test. One of many. And you passed. There will be no second windfall. No secret vault. No reversal of the countdown. You don't need another fortune. Because you've proven you know what one is. No signature. Just an embossed stamp at the bottom. A crest I'd seen once, in Uncle Edward's den, carved into the fireplace stone. Fortuna Parados. Fortune favors the prepared. I sat with that for a long time. And smiled. Day 9, 7 and 45 seconds p.m. The East Side Arts Collective hung one of my sketches in the front lobby. The one of the boy in the ICU. Mateo. Next to it, they added a note. Artist, Miles Fletcher. Title, Borrowed Time. Donated anonymously. Claimed bravely. People asked who I was. I told them. Someone learning to pay attention. Day 14, 3 p.m. I ran into the janitor again. The one I'd sent to Hawaii. He was wearing a floral shirt. The kind that only works on people who've finally tasted rest. He hugged me. Tight. "Do you know what it feels like," he said, "to matter again?" I did. Day 16, 6 and 5 seconds p.m. Jenna and I watched a street performer outside the subway station. Same guy from day one. He had a new amp. A tighter harmony. And his guitar looked like someone had cleaned it with love. I told her. He's the first person I gave money to. She nodded. You started with music. Maybe, I said. Because I wanted to hear something honest before I disappeared. You didn't disappear. No, I said. I finally showed up. She didn't say anything else. She didn't have to. Day 28 a.m. The coffee cart guy, Ollie, opened up late. I stopped by anyway. He handed me a cup without asking and said, "You still good?" "Better than," I said. He grinned. "You want a tab?" I got exactly $2. "Then I guess," he said, "you're rich enough." 1 month later, I stood in front of a classroom. Well, a half-painted community room with folding chairs and art supplies that smelled like rubber cement and childhood. Malik was at the front, sketching a fist in charcoal. The kids were quiet, focused, present. And for the first time, I said it out loud. "My name's Miles," I told them. "I used to think money would save me." I looked around the room. It didn't. They blinked, unsure. "But one day did," I said. "And now I want to help you find your day." Malik raised a brow. "We gonna get rich?" I laughed. "Only if you define it right." The truth? I didn't keep the yacht, or the brownstone, or the fancy clothes. But I kept the names, the faces, the lessons, and the notebook. Every page filled now. Some with sketches, others with promises. At the very end, one line stood alone. I had one day, and I used it to become someone worth being.